When you think about design nowadays, you can't just isolate yourself within a confine of yourself. But what is in your periphery is important. It's not a question of changing it. It's a question of influence. It's inspiring or creating a new way of thinking, which will allow these other parts to move alongside your vision. Hi, I'm Joey Yupangco. Today, I'm going to share with you my life in architecture in the last 40 years. I started out actually after graduating in De La Salle in 1973. I went to work in a bank, the Far East Bank. After a couple of years, I thought that it was really not the right venue for me to be into. I wanted to be an architect, but I was in this belief that you had to be very good in math. And so I said, well, I'll take the next best shot. So I went to Pratt in New York and studied industrial design. So I started to learn the ropes in industrial design. When I got back here in 1988, I didn't know that I was going to be an architect. The evolution and the transformation, I would say, it took a little bit of time. But God-given, I became what you call an architect, maybe a closet architect. The Modular Darkroom was designed in 1984. In my senior year, we were all given a special project to work on. As a foreign student, I was not allowed to work anywhere else except in school. For 2 years, I was working in the photo lab, and I learned a lot working there. When that project came about, I said, maybe I'll make a dark room, because a dark room will allow people to make photography even as a hobby in their houses. That led me to make a modular dark room. But how do you do it? How do we make a dark room and all that? There was no reference of such a product. Luckily for me, I knew what was needed in a dark room, but then how to make it into a space was another thing. I had to reinvent something that in the end, I thought I'll use a metaphor, the metaphor of a camera being a space. You know, the 4x5 camera that has bellows in the middle, like an accordion, so that the box could actually expand. It was like this. So the side view, these are the bellows. That this would allow this to go up, close down or open up. So the post here, over here, they were not only just there for the looks, but it actually held the compartments as well. That particular design for me is memorable because it carried through all my life. How movement can be so important in design. This was the Beau Shoe Store. We did this in the Angela Arcade in 1988. The brief of it was that he wanted his store to be a different store in a way that it would show his products, but he also wanted to be there in the store without people seeing him. The approach we did was to create kind of compartment with a flexibility of movement. The walls would actually be able to have some movements in order for you to see the neckties or accessories. That would be a private office inside and a display interface as well. You wanted the shoe to be seen, so we had a table in front of it and just put in a number of the shoe. The module had to be in the center, and we kept the entire wall free so that the essence of engagement actually was within this place. After Beau, I never turned back. And that's the reason why I always make it a point to show the beginning, where I started, and Beau was it. So the AG house, one day, 1991, someone approached me and he told me, Joey, I want you to make a house, but on one condition. It has to be a house that I've not seen. It has to be a house that would be special for me and my wife. So I said, oh, that's hard, because it was my first time to actually build a house from scratch. I had to really think well. The gist of this was the using of the void. I would mention that became very, very characteristic in all the works that we did. So the void allowed us to do a different spatial planning for their house. We set the private area on one side, public space, it wove together with the height that was open, about 6.5 meters height. So the house, when you enter the house, it was like full of light coming from our sunlit roof. When this house was being put, I got the next house, the BC house, because he saw this house and he said, maybe you can do my house. The second house is very interesting in the sense that it wasn't a void. The void wasn't the focal point. Rather, it was a horizontal stretch of clusters. The programming created its form. It wasn't one form spread, but a series of different design forms. In a sense, the beauty of this particular house is every space was just different those years. A lot of the houses were woody and a bit dark. All suddenly, you had houses, these houses were about space. It's just a whole new era of having openness and light. So I think that those were the years where it stabilized my position to be able to do certain designs. This project, we call it the Salle Campus Development Program, that would lead to the new way of master planning the entire Salle. During the lockdown, I received a call from the other guys in Salle that they wanted to have a 5-year plan. And the whole gesture of rethinking of master planning, we dedicated already of like post-pandemic. Because we learned so much about pandemic, how a lot of things could not work out when there's something that holds everybody not to come to school. The whole point of this animated video that you would see actually would explain how classrooms can now evolve into something more interactive. We all know that how Google has given a lot of information to us. You don't anymore need the research like before. You would do your research now, go to the library, have so many books. But what is really needed are people who can be there to guide you. That mind shift of having very good mentors around can actually be utilized. An area where it's open and you can actually supplement it with so many activities that the entire building can always function no matter what. And so that was the reason why we said, maybe now it's time for us to rethink what educational pedagogies can be, how you can use different ways of changing the way teaching is implemented or engaged. This is a current personal project that I hope I could do and build for myself, for my family. It's a small farmhouse in the Calaca in Batangas. The methodology of construction that could be utilized in this area is limited because of the conditions. So the important thing that I thought of in this project is to build offsite. The modular way of doing this kind of flexible space. We didn't right away come up with this form because the idea was to create something very easy to put together. But it took us a long time to finally, this is what I want. I had to first sculpt the terrain in order for us to build the model into it. So the interior would be something like this. There are a number of compartments here that are flexibly put, but that open and allow two ways wherein we can use this space. One is more formal, is these compartments become private. That's where we use it as our bedroom or whatever. But on the other hand, there's another more attractive activity that probably would work well, would sit well because it's a farmhouse anyway, is to make some of these compartments or make the house like a greenhouse, operate like a greenhouse, where you actually have plants inside. The open spaces become flexible for you to use when you want to be there, and when you don't have to be there, you can fold them. That transformation allowed me to be able to come up with this solution that is more viable for our area, and it also reduces the cost of how this thing will be built. When we were working this with the company, we also just found a way that if given that the company will be able to complete this with us as a prototype, other architects, younger architects, can actually use this as a way of improvising their own way of building their own architecture. It does open up a new way of building outskirts. Who knows, this is just a beginning for other better architecture to come about. You have to always be curious. Parang you always have to ask and be mindful of what you see out there. In fact, you cannot be an architect or you cannot be a designer or something creative and you don't go out and, the best way that you can make your design is when you are exposed. That's the only way you can say, okay, I'm gonna formulate a new idea of how to change this and that. So in architecture, the same thing. And design is about thinking. It's about what is there to do. We have to keep transforming and reinventing ourselves. I think that's all I can share.